You wanna know something magical about indie games? Especially RPG Maker games? You never really know what you're going to get. With how much info and 90 billion trailers come out for a lot of modern games nowadays, I can't help but feel like I know everything about the game without even playing it. It's a tragic thing, but with indie games, you kinda just end up randomly finding them years after they came out and being like, cool, and then you just download it. And the cool thing about indie games is because not a lot of people actually end up caring for your project, you can do whatever you want. There aren't any expectations or necessities you have to follow. And thanks to things like RPG Maker, anyone with any mind can do it. So with that in mind, Soma Spirits. Here's a game I've been wanting to play for a long time. It was the characters, the style, the RPG Maker, man. I had to know what this was about. And what I ended up getting? God, I did not get what I was expecting at all. 2016, made by Sergeant Metatool, or Medtool, also known as Torch 60. What version of RPG Maker? You know, man, I feel like I've come to the point where I don't have to say the specific iteration of the engine every time. I don't think anyone actually cares. So anyways, Soma Spirits came out in 2016. The original version of Soma Spirits did. I didn't play this version. Soma Spirits Rebalance was released in 2017. It's the definitive version. Also, don't hate me, but even though in the script I put Rebalance, I'm probably going to call it Rebalanced at least once in this video. Maybe it's just a language thing, but I just can't do it without the D, man. I always like to talk about the title screens in these games. This is what got me interested in the game, you know? This is a fantastic title screen. You can just tell the relationship between these two just by looking at them. I really love the character designs in this game. I have always been a massive fan of the glowy-eyed, shadow-faced mage look, you know? Hell, all these guys look cool. And the music. Maybe it doesn't sound too special now, but after you beat the game, it will blow your mind. Alright, let's jump in. I won't lie, starting out, I was scared. I didn't know the context of Rebalance, so I was like, man, this game was so unbalanced it needed a patch so big it got put into the title. I didn't understand that it was just a good word to match with the themes of the game. I sweated even more when I saw that there was a difficulty selection screen. That's scary. It's very difficult, I find, to make an RPG that is hard, but doesn't require grinding or some other gimmick like action commands. Although I played enough ROM hacks to understand what makes an RPG difficult. It has to be complex enough to get you to think. Bosses need to have patterns, mechanics. It's not an easy thing to balance. So I went with normal. I think it would be in your best interest to choose normal as well. I'll get into why later, but first, it's story time. We get this cool story intro detailing a tyrannical king known as the Sun King. He's gone mad with power and these two spirits appear and stop him. This basically causes the world of Soma to split, forming the world of joy and the world of sorrow. Two guardians were created to protect these worlds, heart and soul. And so the game begins. You play as Heart, the spirit of joy, waking up out of bed as he excitedly goes out to greet everyone, taking along his clock friend. Everyone is cheerful, especially Heart. God, I love Heart. He's just so cute, man. Eventually you talk to the Elder Tree, and he seems really upset about something, so much so that it seems like the balance of the world is in danger. Heart then decides to talk to his brother Soul about this by going to the Soul World, or the world of sorrow. We then switch over to Soul, the spirit of sorrow, waking up out of bed wondering if he even should as he goes out and sees if there's any trouble, taking along his clock dude. Everyone is pretty serious and pretty downer. The world is colorless and it seems like the Elder is in trouble, which is where Heart shows. This is a brilliant introduction, perfectly presenting the main characters and their sides of Soma in a very charming way. It really strikes down on the idea of the parallels between these two worlds. I think that's important. Everyone who's there on the heart world has a counterpart on the soul world. Their personalities are split. Also, can I just say that I love the presentation of this game? Basically every character has portraits, and the way everything is happy or sad depending on the world you're in is very nice. And the menus too are very charming. I really like this. Anyways, the elder seems upset. Apparently the seed that may save the forest has ran off on his own, becoming independent, and the two are tasked with getting it back. So the gameplay of this game is really cool. You'll constantly have to switch between the heart and soul world while exploring environments. I'm sure you guys have all played a dungeon in an adventure game like this before, right? Usually the gimmick is like switching between two different time periods to progress, but here it's two different worlds. It usually just ends up like, this switch will be here in this world but not in this one. Presentation wise though, it's fantastic. I love seeing the little differences between the worlds, and it's cool to see characters' perspective on things under the dominant feelings of either joy or sorrow, because these are the same characters between worlds. If one thing happens to a character in one world, it happens to another. The only real split characters here are heart and soul because they were created for the split worlds. The music is absolutely fantastic too. More on this later, but there's a heavy focus on motifs. Heart's songs are a lot more happy and silly, while Soul's are a lot more serious and low-key. Just listen to the music when switching between worlds. I love it. The fact that the song doesn't restart when switching between worlds is really impressive to me. Like, I don't know how they did that. The song in the other world will just pause and resume when you get back there. Even cooler, the world switching stuff applies to battles as well. Listen to the differences between Heart's and Soul's battle theme. Heart sounds a lot more like, oh man, what silly antics are we up to today? Being very playful. While Souls comes through with the rocking chiptune like, this fight may determine the fate of the world, we have to do this. Even the enemy sprites change from being sad to happy depending on where you are. This also affects the gameplay in an honestly amazing way. So yeah, this seems like your typical RPG battle system, right? Physical attacks, magic spells, elemental weaknesses, MP, HP. But there's a big catch. Depending on the world that you are currently in when you start a fight, it changes your entire battle plan. The guardian of their respective world will become the dominant one. For example, fighting as Heart in the Heart world, he's the dominant one. Being dominant, he can use magic ranging from his fire, magic debuffs, electricity. However, Heart can't use support skills. Being submissive, Soul can't use his ice and wind magic and can only use support skills such as buffing and healing. Their stats don't change though, they stay the same, but they're both in equal parts necessary. The dominant one on his own isn't super powerful because he can't heal himself without items and isn't capable of buffing himself either. The submissive or recessive one? Well, he can't do a lot of powerful magic, although they can both still do normal attacks. It really does feel like you're playing support though. In a lot of ways, it feels like playing one character, but at the same time too. The things they do with each other are really cool in this. When you level up, you learn new abilities. Soul and Heart will always level up at the same time, and tend to get not opposite per se, but reflective abilities. Soul can debuff attack, Heart can debuff magic attack, right? And the interactions you can have with these abilities are really cool. For example, you can have Soul use Fire Charge, and if Heart buffed Soul by changing his physical attack element to be fire beforehand, the Fire Charge skill will become stronger. Soul can make Heart's magic strike all enemies, while Heart can make all of Soul's magic heal the party. It's really cool just how much depth there is. I didn't think it was possible to make a two-man party in a turn-based RPG so interesting without relying on action commands. If anything, this combat system really shows that these two brothers need each other to deal with problems, which is extremely important to the story and theme. From gameplay to visuals to music to story, this game nails a consistent theme perfectly. And that is incredible. Anyways, you find the Seed, who says he doesn't want other people to decide his life, and he wants to see the world and help in his own way, which, you know, I agree. And depending on what world you're in when you finally confront him, you either convince him to stay and save the forest or allow him to be free. Yes, this is a heavily decision-based game, and your choices can lead to a lot of different places. I did what I would assume most people did. I let him go, taking away his sorrow in the form of an orb. If I did things the other way, I would have taken his joy in the form of an orb. You then place this orb on a pedestal in this palace, where you also end up meeting Flo, and eventually Dissonance a bit later. Hey guys, Editor Spacey here on the ghetto mic. Her name's Form. I don't know how. Throughout this whole video, I call her Flo. Her name's Form, man. I can't believe I'm so stupid. Flo then talks about how if we keep taking away people's sorrow and making everyone happy, there will be no need for a world of sorrow, because then everyone will be happy. And it was about here that I understood what the game was trying to tell me. I am going to put a spoiler alert here now. Please go and play this game and come back to me, okay? This game is unique and beautiful, and I don't want to ruin that to anyone. It's also like 5 hours long, so you can beat it pretty quick. Get it on itch.io, not Steam, it supports the dev more. Link in the description. Alright, I originally thought what likely most people thought, that this was a balance between good and evil. Looking back, I was very narrow-minded to think that not saving the forest and being responsible was evil. Regardless, the next area in the game has you deciding whether or not to set this overworked employee free from his stressful life at the cost of the company, and potentially everyone who enjoys the company. I know that the game wanted me to keep a balance between joy and sorrow, but I just couldn't. I chose to let him go, and I took his sorrow. But something about it this time, it didn't feel good. It's a lot easier to believe that everyone should be happy regardless of the pain that they may cause others from their decisions. But when you're in power and you have the choice to ruin someone's life, it's hard to hurt people, you know? I returned the second orb of sorrow feeling rather empty, and by the third world, regret set in. This game has a pretty consistent structure of going to world, get new equipment, find out who needs help, make a decision, return their orb. But by the third world, the game was starting to hint that too much joy might not be a good thing. Heart began to become more powerful than Soul, saying Soul wasn't needed for anything but fighting, and honestly, seeing these two fight breaks my heart because I love them both. I decided I need to start taking people's joy. I need to keep things balanced. Because happiness can only exist if there is sorrow, and sorrow is just as important as happiness. And suddenly, the moral dilemmas seemed a lot easier. This may be the saddest part, but I think it's because I had already decided the fate of the person who needed help before I even got to talk to them. It's just how the balance is, man. It was nice seeing the dialogue change between Soul and Heart, saying how they always work together as a team and make decisions together, because I was no longer leaning towards one side. You have to understand that the joy world and the sorrow world aren't the good and the bad world. Heart is just as capable as being evil as Soul is, and they are both capable of being good. They just have their own ways. Soul isn't the bad guy, he cares and loves the world and its people just in his own way. But he himself can't exist without Heart. They're different, but they need each other. I have a certain phrase I came up with that I kinda live by. Never be too happy, never be too sad. Because if I always live my life happy and carefree, I miss out on my problems. I unknowingly hurt people. I create new problems. If I live my life in sorrow, I become sick. I focus too hard on things that ultimately don't matter. I unknowingly hurt people. I create new problems. I try my best to live in complete equilibrium. I try my best to love everyone, including myself. But I don't go out of my way to make others' days better, because that's not always the best thing to do constantly. People need to be able to feel sad. They need it to feel joy. And they need joy to feel sad. It's not like I could go out of my way to greet and express love for others anyways, because as much as I wish I could live in this equilibrium, I have no issue agreeing with the fact that I'm a lot more like Soul than Heart. I can relate to a lot of how he feels and acts, and sometimes even how he wants to solve problems. I love like he does, but much like him, I could never say and do the things that Heart does to people. But on the other side, I agree a lot more with Heart's ideas and how he wants to solve people's problems. Remember how when it comes to abilities, a lot of the time, Soul and Heart learn kind of opposite-like versions of their abilities? Well, the one type of spell that they both share is that they can both heal. The dev, Sergeant Metul, or Torch 60, has stated that the game represents their depression and the effect of their bipolar disorder, and how they handle internal conflicts in their life, using heart and soul. And how too much joy or too much sorrow can destroy yourself. Soma means body, right? Well, the name of the world that is currently split, and is in need of the balance of joy and sorrow to keep alive, it's named Soma. Man, the final boss of this game is sick. I'm not going to show, in fact the whole finale was really cool. I didn't expect the plot twist, really. And God, I won't lie, I kind of began to tear up at a certain part at the end, man, really. It hit me, man, this whole game did. But yeah, the final boss took like 40 minutes. And it's not because I died or anything, I beat it first try, but dude, what a fight. It's a multi-form fight, but man, even the final form took like 20 minutes, and it was intense. I never felt like I had the boss in a loop. I felt like I could lose any second. You know how RPGs always have those super rare items that heal all your HP and MP? I had so many of those I saved up to this point, and I was glad because I had to use like 30 items on this boss. I used everything I had, man. By the end of it, I was running out of ways to heal my MP. And when I play RPGs, I always make sure to buy a life supply of healing items at the beginning of the game. But this fight, I had to go all out. Maybe to some people this fight was a long, boring slog, but to me, this is what I want in a final boss fight. I was on edge this whole time. It's bosses like these, you know, something like the final boss of Bug Fables on hard mode, real long, hard fights, always on the edge. That's the stuff you remember. Plus, it works with the story. You are fighting a very powerful creature, one capable of destroying the world, so it only makes sense that this fight should be a challenge by all means. I feel like a lot of games end up being underwhelming by having a powerful final boss being super easy. Like, that actually hurts the story too. But man, I won't lie, I was impressed how engaged I was with this. Not just this fight, but all the bosses were pretty good, man. I've always had this belief that turn-based JRPGs needed 3 or more party members to be interesting or have strategy, but this might be the most strategy in depth a 2-person party could have, and that's kind of amazing. And God, the final boss's music, man, incredible. This whole soundtrack, man, by AgentApe. The use and blending of all these different character motifs and instruments, from soul to heart to dissonance to flow, it's masterful. I'm honestly kind of glad I made some of the decisions I made because it meant that I got to fight Dissonance, which I'm pretty sure is an optional fight because I never fought Flow. And not only is his battle theme incredible, but the fight itself is too. The world shift gimmick is so cool, and the fight on its own just felt so good, man. It's hard to describe. I also really like the Heart version of the Snowland theme, Stay Frosty Friend. Maybe my favorite song though, Call Me Crazy, is this song that only plays on one screen. You only hear it for like 5 seconds before you leave the screen. But just look at this clip, I immediately go back to listen to the song again because I'm like, wait, hold up, that was good. The song is really interesting because it's a heart song. With a lot of heart songs, they're typically really silly, upbeat, just give off a joyful tone. But this one has a lot more weight, it's serious, thoughtful, solemn. I feel like these songs don't just represent the worlds, but maybe also what Heart and Soul themselves are feeling. And maybe just for this moment, Heart was thinking the same thing that I was. Because at this moment of the game that I began to understand what I had to do about the balance of the world. I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy, but it's just stuff to think about. Funnily enough, this song is so unimportant that not only is it on the one screen in the entire game, but it's not even on AgentApe's SoundCloud or YouTube playlist for this game's soundtrack. As far as I'm concerned, the name of this song is just sidepath.ogg. But I really like it, it just feels powerful. Like a morale boost, the kind of music you'd hear when making a tough decision, and understanding the consequences of your choice. Speaking of music, remember how I said the title screen music was special? Listen to it again. You hear that? It's a mixture of the motifs from Soul and Heart's themes, matching the overall theme of needing both of them. Yeah, these two parts sound different side by side, but they both work together to make a beautifully banging tune. It's just so good. But yeah, have I ever told you how hard this game is? I swear, I never got a game over, but every fight, and that includes the normal random on-map encounters, you can get two-shot very easily. You always have to be focusing on offense and defense. No fight is just an easy sweep. You will never one-shot an enemy unless if you're over-leveled or you're backtracking. And if you just mash attack, you're going to get a game over. And I have a complaint for RPGs that think difficulty is just making every fight as dangerous as a boss fight. But I don't think this game does that. It handles difficulty in an RPG better than I have seen most games do. Maybe even along the likes of understanding that ROM hackers who make difficult version of their favorite JRPGs do. There's definitely an understanding and love for the genre here. I guess I can spit out my complaints real quick, I don't actually have much. Firstly, there are different kinds of on-screen enemies. The black ones move around randomly, touch them, and it starts a fight. Gold ones are special encounters that give you neat items, but this only happened twice in my playthrough, so... Red ones though? Red enemies are super quick and will chase you. There's a point where on-screen encounters become kinda pointless when there's no way to actually avoid the encounter. This is like the illusion of an on-screen encounter, kinda like Chrono Trigger I suppose. I mean, you can run from fights, and to this game's credit, you can actually run from fights. You at most will fail once. But also casual reminder, enemies can easily two-shot you in this game, and if your run attempt fails, then you're in a tough spot because you basically just got halved. It makes sense why these red enemies exist though. It's to keep you leveled up, make sure that you aren't too low leveled for encounters, and in that way I can respect it. It's a mixed relationship. Another problem is how equipment works. Every area is just go to the shop, buy the next strongest weapon, buy the best defense, the next best ring, equip them all. Most of the time these are just straight up number increases, like weapon that does higher damage, armor that does higher defense. Sometimes you get neat modifiers like this one that gives extra magic attack, or this one that lets you poison the opponent with normal attacks, but these will still always be outclassed by the next tier. There isn't much choice. Although, with how engaging fights are already, maybe this isn't much of a flaw, and it just simply wasn't necessary. You see how even with my complaints, they aren't really complaints? My final one is a complaint though. I know this is a JRPG trope and all that, but at one point in the game, you get absolutely destroyed in a scripted lost fight against the Ice Princess, but then end up beating her anyways like 5 minutes later with nothing changed, like maybe you leveled up like twice? These guys are guardians, and I feel like they should be stronger than anyone else in the world that they are guardians of. Like yeah, you can still get knocked out and game over by normal enemies, but it's like how in most games the canon storyline implies that you never died, or for the Resident Evil games it assumes you just never took damage. I can understand the final boss being an actual threat, But Random Ice Princess? That doesn't sit well with me. But that's only just a nitpick overall, and also the end of my complaints. You guys don't understand. This game took me like 6 hours to beat, and I beat it all in one sitting. Yes, I was that invested. I really enjoyed what I was playing. And once you beat it, you even unlock New Game Plus mode so you can replay through again, make different decisions, all that. You may be wondering, did I try to do a run where I only took others' joy or others' sorrow? Well, I couldn't bring myself to do it. To willingly make choices that will hurt these two characters I love and make them fight, I couldn't stand to see it. Did I ever tell you that I never did a genocide run in Undertale? I can't bring myself to hurt characters I love. Especially with who the villains of the plot turn out to be, I just can't do that. Call me a wuss, call me a bad reviewer for not seeing every possible outcome, but maybe I just got a heart and soul. If you've been watching me, you should know that I care about video game characters, man. And honestly, after getting the best ending, you think I would enjoy going back, making bad decisions just to get a crappy ending that would make me feel bad? Hell no! I don't ever want to play this game in a way that would make heart and soul hate each other, because I love seeing them bounce off each other, I love this writing, I enjoy this. But hey, if you are interested in seeing a heartless or a soulless run, I advise you to check out The Wrong Room. They thoroughly cover everything in this game, links to their stuff in the description. Although they were playing the original game, I believe, and not Rebound, it just hadn't come out yet at the time. So maybe there's more that isn't documented anywhere. But hey, that's your job if you so choose to accept it. I don't usually say this, but play this game. Go and buy it, not on Steam, do it on itch.io, it supports the dev the most. It's like $3 for a 5 to 6 hour RPG with a ton of replayability that I loved so much I beat it all in one sitting. So go get this game, or I'm going to beat you up. Now! Okay, so you may be wondering, what else is Torch 60 up to? Well, they've actually made a ton of pretty cool looking games. Like, should I talk about these games sometime? Maybe? Well, there is one game here I am certainly going to talk about. Soma Union, baby! A sequel to Soma Spirits that was announced earlier in June of this year. This game looks awesome. I really want to play this. It's not out yet, but they have a blog up going over the updates and overall progress roadmap of the game. Cool. God. Games like these, this is the stuff that reminds me of why I love video games. You do great work, Torch 60, Sergeant Metal, Sergeant M. Love you. Check these games out, guys. These are what video games are to me. Made with love and played with love. Games like these that were made with passion. Made with heart and soul.